My name is Éric Hébert-Daly. I'm the Regional Executive Minister for this region and two others. I'm happy to spend a little bit of time talking to you about our strategic plan. Many of you will remember that we adopted a strategic plan 2 years ago in 2023, and we have been moving along in that strategic plan with some enthusiasm. I'm sure all of you could name, if I said activity stream 5, tell me what activity stream 5 is. Anyone? Justice. Okay, very good. Activity stream 8. No, you're not allowed to look at your report books. That's not good. What I'm saying is that ultimately, we don't all know every activity stream in our strategic plan. Aruna is a very exceptional person who obviously remembers many of these things. But I want to make sure that we understand that it is our regional council plan. It belongs to all of us. And in some respects, where I'm going to be reporting on, and we want to do the accountability piece of this, you're going to see that there are places where we haven't moved very far forward, and it is almost consistently the same reason in each of those spots. And that has been a lack of volunteers. And I admit that you probably all feel this in your own churches too, right? We have trouble recruiting people, and sometimes the problem, at least at the congregational level, tends to be that we have way too many committees for what we actually need to do. And my general view, and what I've often told congregations in the past, is if you have a congregation you're having trouble recruiting people for, ask yourself what the Holy Spirit is telling you. Now, there are some things that you cannot go without. You can't go without an MNP. You can't go without some sort of a board or council. But the vast majority of the teams or committees that we have in place are often just there because they've been there in the past, and we have to find the people to fill them in the future. I invite you to always be in a space of conversation with the Spirit about these things, because they're not required, no one's forcing it to be true, and if there are no people to be there, maybe the question is, should this be something that you spend a lot of time on? And I know a lot of you are going to go, but it's important. And I know, but we need to sometimes be able to divide that out. I'm going to say that because when you see the strategic plan, part of what I'm going to be asking you to do is to go, maybe this isn't what we need to be doing going forward for the things that we've had trouble finding people for. It may have been something we felt strongly about at the time, but it may not be quite exactly what we needed to do. And so that evaluation, because we are now coming to the end of 2025, we're going to need to be thinking about what the strategic plan needs to evolve into going forward. And the report that you're about to get may help inform that as we go forward. So will this afternoon's presentation on 2035. Because then we now have data with which we can then sort of go, aha, maybe we thought we should be here, but as we try to discern where the Spirit is moving, where the wind is blowing, where we can see the ripples on the lake, where we can see the movement of the leaves in the trees, that maybe we need to be thinking about this differently. And so that is what I'm going to invite you to do as I try to race through this report so that you can all have a good long lunch together. So, activity stream 1. Oh, sorry, yes. We'll move right to activity stream 1. The Community of Faith self-assessment tool was created, is in use. We know for a fact that 10 have used it in 2024 and that more are using it in 2025. We'd love to see it more used, obviously, at this point, but in terms of what the Regional Council could produce, we feel we've achieved it. So we've given it a B. As a grade at this point. So that's where our Community of Faith self-assessment tool is. And if you're looking for it, it is on the eCork website and is available to you at any time as a way for you to sort of examine how you're doing as a congregation and where are areas you might be thinking you might want to put some focus on. Activity stream 2. We've talked a lot about the importance of collaborative, shared, and new ministry resources. And so we've gathered the resources together. We had set this idea that we would do a road show and hold events, that workshops would be held, and that at least 50% of communities of faith would participate. Well, up until now, we've got the resources gathered, we've held events in quite a number of different parts of our region, and 35% of communities of faith have participated, 60 of them. So we're not quite at the 50%, but not bad. So we're expecting to do a little bit more of this over the next coming months. We call it the Ministry in Changing Times Roadshow. So if the roadshow comes near you, please come and join. It is a healthy way for us to reimagine the things we've taken for granted. Activity stream 3. We've talked a lot about amalgamating and disbanding resources. We have, in fact, created and shared them. The one place where we are feeling we could do a little bit more work is on the evaluation and the web presence, so that it highlights it. We obviously want to provide these resources in the right places. If your community of faith is doing well and doesn't need to be thinking about amalgamation or disbanding, we're obviously not going to force you to use this material. But it is there and available, and so that is where we are at on activity stream 3. On 4, we talked a lot about alternative worship services and having links on the regional website. We have gathered some. We're not quite at the place where we feel like we're doing as well on being able to pull some of that together. There are obviously resources available nationally, and we're going to try to integrate some of those a bit more. So we need a little bit more, and it can be a little bit ephemeral as an activity stream. And so we're realizing that what we might need going forward is a little bit more clarity about what it is that we really need and what will be useful to folks going forward in this particular activity stream. Activity stream 5, Aruna? Our justice feature. What we realized is that it would be very helpful for us as a goal, again, in the idea of focusing and not trying to do everything all at once and assume that everyone's going to be able to sort of follow all the different pieces. We took a bit of a leadership stance in saying what we would like to do is have a quarterly focus where there is material shared in a particular quarter of the year on a particular justice issue, so that we can offer worship resources, we can offer action resources, we can try to make it a focal point for a quarter. And so rather than trying to talk about 10 justice issues throughout the year, that we're talking about 4 throughout the year and be focused in a quarter so that everyone has that ability. So we started strong in 2024. What we've realized that we're missing is volunteers. So having a bit more support to be able to work with the Faith, Nurture, and Justice leadership team so that we can plan and put those pieces together going forward would be very helpful. So a little bit of volunteer support here would make this particular activity stream really sing. So if this is something that you think you might be interested in doing, a little bit of worship material, a little bit of action or educational materials around a particular justice issue, this is your time. Get in on the ground floor. It's going to be great. On activity stream 6, we talked about having a media strategy. And I keep talking about earned media because a lot of folks don't know what earned media is. But there's a difference between earned media and paid media. Paid media is when you buy an ad in a newspaper or put an ad on television or on the radio. That's where you actually make sure that you're covered because you've paid for that coverage. Earned media is trying to find ways to get journalists interested in your stories so that they do it for free. That's obviously better from our perspective because we don't have a lot of money to throw around at paid advertising strategies. And so what we had decided as an objective is we would have spokespeople identified and trained and develop a response quickly around how to do that. So last fall, we held a training session that was quite well attended in Brighton that allowed folks to be able to get a sense of what are ways to build relationships with journalists? What are ways for us to get our message out in earned media ways? And so the training was done and it was very well received. And in fact, I've seen some communities of faith using those techniques to get media attention, which is fantastic. Where we haven't yet quite finished this job is getting our spokespeople lined up and being able to identify spokespeople on specific issues that can be proactive in building relationships with journalists and who can be really set in having some really easy talking points on a particular issue. So if you're the climate spokesperson, you have some great ways to tie theological communication skills into that issue with some good brevity and some good ways of speaking easily into that issue when something comes up, and we can piggyback on the event that's happening in a quick and effective way. We're not so quick sometimes. We like to have about 45 different people look at the things that we're going to say, and by the time the press release comes out, the story is long gone. So this is the piece that we're trying to work on, and we need to be doing some focus on in the next little while. If you feel you're called to be a spokesperson on a particular issue, and that we can give you some tools and some strengthening for that, and the regional council can understand that you are our spokesperson for that, please talk to us. This is a really good opportunity. On 7, Faithful Footprints. You've heard a little bit about Faithful Footprints. In fact, I was criticized by our general counsel finance team for being perhaps the person who's pushed a little too hard on the Faithful Footprints accelerator, because the demand did go up a little bit high. In fact, in our case, we had said that we would get 10% of our communities of faith involved in Faithful Footprints. We got to 19, so we blew that record out of the water. So we definitely... It's my fault, yes, yeah. You can blame me, it's okay, I take full responsibility. Because this is in fact an activity stream that is echoed in my other 2 regional councils, so we've had a little bit of a bump. So this is an issue, but again, we'll see how we can we'll get back into this as time comes along and as this activity stream continues, but we have certainly blown that record out of the water. Stream 8. We talked about reducing our carbon footprint as a regional council. On this, we wanted to develop a task group that's established to do this. So we didn't create a task group in the end, but we do have staff doing some leadership around this. And I'd like to specifically thank Karen Wilson for having done a fantastic job at starting to track our carbon footprint as a regional council in a way that we now have a baseline to which we can compare year over year and start to measure where we're actually doing reductions. We're obviously encouraging carpooling and public transit wherever possible. We've also established a system now so that we know 3 years into the future where and when our regional council meetings are going to be held, which is going to help us then do some planning around that. And so we're quite excited to be able to say, and maybe in future newsletters, Karen will be able to sort of highlight, in 3 years from now, your regional council meeting will be held at this church on this day. So you can put it in your calendars right now, and you have no excuse to tell me that you didn't know. So, coming soon. Activity stream 9. We wanted to establish a climate forum, and what was the problem? Aha. So, we had a few volunteers come forward to date. We're trying to see if we can continue to activate that. If this is an issue that you feel strongly about, please let me know. This is an issue, obviously, we feel like there is general enthusiasm for, but we haven't quite found the people who are willing to be part of that forum and thinking through how we engage on this issue as a regional council and engage our congregations as well in this conversation. So, and by the way, that photo is from my walk on the Camino last summer. So I thought I'd share that. Activity stream 10. Lay mentorship network. What was the problem? So this is a challenge. We've done some surveying. We identified 8 people who were interested in being part of this. It hasn't quite come together as expected. We really do need volunteer leadership if this is going to get off the ground. And ultimately, as I say, if at the end of the year we're realizing that there just isn't the volunteer energy necessary, then this may be something we put off until we're able to find volunteers for this and find the energy for it. Activity stream 11. We talked about having an association of ministers. Some of you know there's a regional council in Eastern Canada that has an association of ministers that has been active. We had a group that began work on this. There was some debate about whether or not it should be more focused on specific goals. We didn't quite get there. How that's evolved over the last year has been that we have now started to put together ministry support events. We had our first one on Thursday, where we had an excellent retreat of ministry personnel talking about managing conflict or handling conflict. Really, actually, a very effective presentation, good, excellent workshop dialogue with those who were involved. And we have quite a few ideas about how to proceed with this on the ministry support side going forward. So more to come on that. Activity stream 12, we had talked about having a governance models toolkit. It's been created, it's available, check. Activity stream 13. We talked about having ministry and personnel refresher courses. We wanted to try to get 50% of our congregations participating in this M&P training. We've delivered that. We're at 40% of congregations who have participated. Ultimately, you can't force people to participate in these things. We'd love to get that extra 10% going, but at this point, that has been quite a success going forward. Activity stream 14, a Healthy Connections Forum. This is a team that helps to stay in touch with our congregations. What we're hoping for is that each of the leaders of sub-regional areas of this regional council are literally calling congregations a couple of times a year and just checking in, saying, how's it going? What do you need? Anything that we can do for you? And just keeping a relationship with our congregations. Because while a good number of them send representatives to this regional council meeting, not all of them do. And so, or some of those reps just haven't been able to come to meetings. So having a regular touch base and connection is really important. So we have established a team. We're still looking for additional folks there too, because obviously the more people you have calling, the smaller the list is for each person to call. And so a formal launch of that is on its way, and we're very excited about seeing that come forward. And then I believe we have our last one, which has not begun yet. We wanted to, once we have established all of these other pieces, to actually go through a process of renewing the covenant between congregations and the regional council that reflects the congregation's specific charisms, what it brings to the broader life of the regional council, but we need all of those foundational pieces before we can get to that stage, which is kind of the cherry on the sundae. So that's yet to come, but that's where we are at this point. Happy to take any questions on our strategic plan. I don't think there's another slide, but maybe there is. Oh, just to remind us that the purpose of a regional council isn't to be a regional council. We are there to support healthy communities of faith and healthy ministry personnel. That is our purpose. We are there for communities of faith, and we are constructed by communities of faith. Without communities of faith, there is no regional council. And it is really important that we remember that we as a regional council aren't seeking media attention. We're not seeking to talk to the general public. That isn't our role. Our congregations are our retail storefronts, if you want to think about it that way. And so our job is to support those, because you are the people doing evangelism. You are the folks talking to people in your communities and are bringing the good news to those folks. That isn't the job of the regional council. We're there to provide you with as much support as we can give. And so that is why we are here and why we're trying to inspire innovation and good governance and healthy relationships. And I do think there's actually one more slide. We'll talk about 2035 in the afternoon, but obviously what you're going to hear this afternoon is going to help inform how we go forward into 2026 for a renewed strategic plan. It's going to have to, because we're now, unlike in the 2023 to 2025 piece where we didn't have data accessible to us, now we're going to have data, and so our decisions going forward are going to be data informed. And that's going to mean, aha, now that we see there's a group of congregations that are in need of this kind of support, how do we provide that support as a regional council? Rather than guessing or using anecdotes or our best assessment, now we're going to be equipped with some real data to be able to go forward and do this. And that's the part I'm excited about, and not just because I'm a data nerd, but because I actually think this is what a regional council should do. If we're going to support communities of faith, we need to know where our communities of faith are at. And we need to be using that information to continue to forward that going forward. It's amazing that we've gone 100 years without doing this. Let's do it going forward.